Thanks for joining us for our Wednesday bonus session of the Real Organic Symposium on Milk and Money. Since last Sunday, a few viewers told me that, though they understand the problems in organic dairy better, they still aren't sure which organic milk to buy. That was a little bit the point. The current system lacks transparency and basically functions as a monopoly. So we need political changes as well as marketplace action. But I do want to try to directly answer that question. As with all organic food, the best option is to buy directly from a dairy farm that you know has exemplary grazing practices. I'm fortunate enough to have such a dairy with on-farm processing that I can buy milk from directly up the road. The Real Organic Project has certified many such farms. A few you even met in the symposium footage, including the Milkhouse in Maine and Sidehill Farm in Massachusetts. But not everyone is so lucky. It's really difficult to find pasture-based dairies that are bottling their milk separate from the organic commodity pool. Becoming a processor on top of the 365-day job of grazing and milking cows, it's an unrealistic ask for many dairy farmers. And in last Sunday's session of Milk and Money, we explained that there are serious financial hurdles to installing processing equipment at the farm. Also, many such attempts in the past to regionalize processing has failed, because then these regional processors must compete in a monopolized marketplace system that lacks transparency. Nevertheless, all over the country, this is what we must work to build: a more localized, decentralized, and transparent supply chain for organic dairies that are rotationally grazing. It's not going to be easy. We need funding to do so and excellent marketing to communicate the differences from CAFO Organic. Right now, even the best brands that I look for when I'm traveling, such as Organic Valley, Maple Hill, Stonyfield, Kelowna, they're not fully transparent about their supply chains, and they're currently paying farmers below the cost of production because they compete directly with CAFO organic milk. Many of us believe that we must build a fully transparent system that rewards farmers to improve their grazing beyond the minimum requirements. And this is what the Real Organic Project is all about. In the marketplace, we also must remember that it's Danone's brand Horizon that dropped the 89 farms in New England. And so even though there are excellent farmers that sell to Horizon, I choose not to buy from them because I don't trust all of their sourcing. Of course, we need to fix the problems of USDA enforcement, but the farmers of the Real Organic Project have already waited decades for this to happen. While the USDA continues to tell us they're working on it, we've gone ahead with creating an alternative label that you can trust, because there is democratic farmer oversight. If the USDA won't require fully transparent supply chains, Real Organic does. If the USDA allows conventional animals to be cycled into organic, Real Organic will not. If the USDA won't enforce the pasture rule, Real Organic Project does. We even require a higher grazing standard. But any real solution must be fully transparent and farmer-led. Even as it succeeds and grows, these things tend to go away as larger corporations buy up the brands. Starting over, this is going to take time. The Real Organic label isn't everywhere because we must recertify and build another movement. But look for the Real Organic Project label, and if you don't see it, ask for it, and that demand will encourage stores to carry it. We're gathering again today because Gary Hirshberg, the co-founder of Stonyfield, came to us with a possible way to support the farms being dropped by Horizon. We do have some concerns, including leaving it to the processors to validate that the milk being offered under this New England Family Farm Partnership truly is regional, and that some of the farms dropped by Horizon won't qualify, as well as other regional brands like Maple Hill that don't qualify. But right now, this is a proposal on the table to help some of the farms facing contract terminations. That's why we're sharing this time for Gary to explain his plan for a Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership. We certainly know that we need more than this proposal to ensure that all the farms dropped last fall can survive, and that we don't continue to see contract terminations under the current system. So please use the comment thread to write in your thoughts. We know that we must go much further than this to have the workings of a free market. I still remember sharply Francis Tickey's response when I asked him, why can't we simply get a full list of producers for each brand including store brands like Kroger, Walmart, and Costco, but also the much better brands such as Stonyfield, Organic Valley, and Kelowna, and Maple Hill. His reply was, because those in power don't want you to have that information.
Welcome to the Real Organic Project podcast, and my guest today is Gary Hirshberg. Gary has a pretty amazing story of starting as a partner with Samuel Kamen many years ago, milking one cow, I believe, in the very beginning, and making yogurt to fund their nonprofit, which seems like a crazy idea, Gary. That's how you're going to make money. And of course, that one cow evolved into Stonyfield yogurt, which is become a very big enterprise. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. This will be interesting. Welcome.
Well, at first, thanks for having me. As you know, I haven't been the most enthusiastic champion of the Real Organic Project, but I know that we have the same end goal, so I'm delighted to be chatting with you. And to clarify, it was Samuel who was doing the milking. Samuel's really the creator of Stonyfield. I joined him. I was on the board of the little nonprofit and rural education center that Samuel started, and I joined him a few months after we launched Stonyfield. So he was the lonely farmer, and I'm not sure any of us were thinking too much about revenue at the time. But Samuel had something that we didn't have. He had this genius for fermented foods in particular. In fact, he was making beer, he was making kimchi, he was making sauerkraut, and he was making this delicious yogurt from his one cow. And during one of many board meetings, as we were wringing our hands trying to figure out how do we rescue this little nonprofit, how do we keep the work going, because we knew we were on the right track scientifically. Somebody, and to this day, I'm not sure who gets the credit, but somebody said, why don't you start selling this stuff? Because we were sitting there eating Samuel and Louise's delicious ambrosia-like plain yogurt with his maple syrup at our board meeting. Anyhow, that became the inspiration for Stonyfield. He borrowed $35,000 from the Sisters of Mercy, a group of Catholic nuns. You can hear all of this in the How I Built This podcast. But the point is that soon it became evident that this was a really important question that he and we were asking, which is, can we make this a commercially viable, can we get organic into the mainstream?
I'd like to talk about, we're here to talk about milk and money and talk about the challenges that face the organic dairy world now, the organic dairy farms. Talk about the gap between what we want organic to be and what sometimes it has become. Before we do, could you just give a little bit of context for Stonyfield from that beginning?
Sure. But what happened for us was something that happened to many of our colleagues as we tried to make the transition from nonprofit advocacy to actual commerce and sort of pay the bills. We outgrew quickly our 19 cows at the farm. The magic night is captured in that podcast. It was the night the power went out when we had finished milking one cow and we had to milk the other 18 by hand. And the next morning, Samuel, and then start making yogurt and running our business and me collecting investment. And we realized we couldn't do both. We look at people like Jack and Ann Laser at Butterworks who farmed and processed with utter astonishment. Jack, who unfortunately, of course, has left us, but Jack heard me say 1,000 times that I just worship him because he did things we couldn't do. But we were setting out to educate, we were setting out to inspire. We wanted consumers to realize that they could get superior quality and still be responsible for reducing externalities. And so we needed to find other farms, and we could not find any farms willing to do all the crazy stuff we were doing with the herbs. The thought of not using antibiotics was anathema. Farmers terrified them, as it does often young parents. And we literally couldn't find a single organic farm.
And also, you and Samuel are a good example of the fact that you were both first-generation farmers.
Yeah, well, Samuel was the farmer. I don't want to take credit where it isn't due. He was the farmer. I was the business fix-it guy. I was the educator, the marketer, the money guy. But yeah, we were. And so too, I mentioned to you all the dairy farmers who would not even consider the things we were talking about. We sat hat in hand at their kitchen tables, many of them after milking, and said, look, this is what we'd like you to do. And they were looking at us like we were crazy. I mean, it wasn't just they weren't interested. They thought this was nuts. In the end, the farmers did not want to talk to us, the business people, even though Samuel was they wanted to talk and hear from other farmers. And over the years, as we're now up to supporting 2,000 organic dairies, right? Family farms, average herd size, 66 cows. The primary way that farmers have come on board has been because other farmers have encouraged them. But the other, and you really raise a good point here, the other reason that we've been so successful in building to the scale we are now, which is more like 400 million in annual sales, is because the whole infrastructure is now back in place. We have the vets, we have the suppliers, we have, now in those days, we could find one veterinarian for all of New England who would travel to a farm that wasn't using antibiotics or hormones. Now you've got a lot more around there. The science is out there. It's been published. It's been reviewed. There's a track record. We now know that organically raised cows live twice as long as conventional cows. That was something we knew, Samuel knew, especially cows treated homeopathically, but we couldn't convince others to do that. In the end, we won. I mean, Stonyfield is one of the top 4 brands across the in the marketplace, and we're no different. I mean, Organic Valley, as I've mentioned, but Nature's Path. I mean, so many of these established brands got there without advertising, got there by sharing our story, building the ultimate holy grail of consumer products, which is loyalty. Because in the end, the power of loyalty is you get word of mouth. If you're loyal to a product, you're going to tell your wife or somebody buy this product. You get passion. You get emotion. Most of us don't become loyal intellectually. We feel it. And so nowadays with bloggers and social media and so forth, we're able to really be transparent. You can visit one of our our farms on camera now 24/7, and you can feel connected to them. And so that's the central paradigm of organic, is changing the way we think about even economics, paying the proper price of cost of goods, doing with less advertising, because we're going to build loyalty by being real, by having an authentic purpose. And that's, of course, what you're getting at with the Real Organic Project, is let's make it real. So I stepped back from controlling Stonyfield, but I continued to be chair. Emmanuel Faber, the former CEO of Danone, and I came up with the idea of them acquiring White Wave Foods, of which Horizon is one of the largest brands. And the idea was that I was going to become the chair or vice chair of this U.S. organic yogurt company. Unfortunately, the Securities and Exchange Commission had a different idea. This is a little bit of irony in this story. This was the same year they allowed Bayer to buy Monsanto. Mm-hmm. So you have the combination of two $70 billion chemical companies combining, no problem. This is the Trump SEC. But they wouldn't allow Stonyfield and Horizon to be combined because it was too much of a concentration of organic milk under one roof. It was all political. And I could go into that story too. It was a nightmare. But in the end, we had to divest. Danone had to divest, and they spun Stonyfield off. And I wanted to put in a bid to buy Stonyfield. I wasn't allowed to due to SEC stuff. So in the end, a company called Lactalis, which is a private company owned by 2 brothers and a sister, bought Stonyfield. So this brings me up to the present to say, at that point I parted with Danone, and of course Danone went on with Horizon. So bringing us to the present, I do have a lot of insights here. I knew how they thought. I knew that there was constant pressure on Stonyfield, which I was able to keep at arm's length because I was in total control. to reduce my milk costs. As I've said multiple times in this interview, the mission, Samuel's and my mission from day one was, and all the organic, my wonderful organic colleagues out there, has been to pay the farmers a proper price. There was always pressure because as a global dairy, they knew how to make it cheap. But I was always able to resist it. But still, I know that there was a voice inside Danone that was always unhappy about the fact that I was paying over $30 a hundredweight when they were, that was their jobs, to improve the profitability of the mothership. Yeah. So bringing us to this is my way of saying to you that I have my own views, which I'm going to keep private, about what really was going on within Horizon. But regardless of those views, the fact is that this trend, this pressure on farms, and declining fortunes and inability to get as many farms to convert is not a new story. But with the sudden termination of 89 farms, we now had a bona fide crisis on our hands. And as you know, only a month or two later, Maple Hill announced an additional 46 farms that they were dropping for different reasons.
Could you tell people who Maple Hill is?
Yeah, sorry. Maple Hill is a grass-fed organic dairy. It was founded by a former Organic Valley grower, actually, named Tim Joseph, wonderful guy, with an idea of doing all grass-fed organic. And Tim had proven that this worked on his own farm, and he built a very nice brand. But it's very expensive milk. And so as expensive as organic is versus conventional, grass-fed is even more so. And it's really hard to make money. And so then what happened was they were challenged financially, and a group of venture capitalists came in. And, in order to get an ROI, they made some decisions that had to do with the balance sheet to drop those 46 farms. Either way, if you were a farmer sitting at your kitchen table in August or October of 2021, it was, most likely the worst day of your entire life. And let's not forget, a lot of these farms have been farming for generations, not just for their own lives. This was the day when they were given, effectively a firing notice. And the problem is in this environment that I've already described of decreased dairy consumption, the options for these farmers are really limited. The only real solution for them to get contracts is either Organic Valley, Stonyfield, or somebody else launching their own products. But the problem is actually worse than I've described it, because in addition to dropping the farms, Horizon, as I mentioned already, is replacing that milk with milk from other farms. So it's not like there's suddenly a market gap, right? 89 farm market gap. There's no gap at all. They're just bringing other milk into the market. I have many of these farmers are friends, and I can tell you that, I can tell you right now that some of them that was it. That they sold their cows and they're out. Some went to early retirement. And we all need to understand, not the Real Organic Project, but consumers need to understand that, and remember that these farmers are reaping enormous ecosystem services. They're giving. So when an organic farm goes under, it's worse than a farm going under. It's a farm that has over years, at least 3 years, as you know, to get certified, been slowly changing the entire paradigm, cleaning up their entire aquifer, et cetera, et cetera. When they go to forest or whatever they go to, let alone a development, that's a real loss, especially to my little Lila, my grandchild, and future generations. So right away, you got one big macro problem, which is these farms, we can't afford to lose them. We've got to go in the direction of more of them, not less of them. Obviously, I should have said number one is the tragedy of these farm families, right? Like that I take for granted. Number two is losing these ecosystem services. Number three, just at an macroeconomic level, if these now 135 farms, when you add the two together, go under, it's in the order of $87 million of lost farm income into rural Northeast, right? we know, studies, American Farmland Trust has shown that 98% of organic farms purchases are local. So that money, they've shown that organic farm income recycles 1.9 times in the local community. So the economic impact of that scale of loss, again, almost $90 million, is catastrophic for a lot of these. You live in areas like this, I do too. And this is not like chump change in rural Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and New York. So I felt we needed to do something. We needed a new solution. And to make, again, a long story very short, it's clear to me, and I don't think this is debatable, that the only real solution for these farms is we need increased demand. We need the market to grow, whether through innovation, new products that come to market, new store shelves. We need conversion of cafeterias, University of Vermont and Maine and New Hampshire and SUNY Buffalo and the SUNYs, all their cafeterias, business and industry cafeterias, restaurants. We need to prioritize these farms. And I want to say, as I quickly go into explaining this partnership, which I can do succinctly here, that our mission is not just to save the 135 farms, this Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership. It's to recognize that this year it's 135 farms, but we've got to change the entire market conditions so that none of these farmers are ever in jeopardy again. Horizon should have never had the option of letting these farms go. Because effectively, if you stop and think about it, what they're saying, and I hope I don't get sued for this, but because it's true, is they're saying we want to be able to keep selling in your market area, we just don't want to be supplied in your market area. And we consumers need to say, hey, wait a second, keep selling to us, but you've got to cycle your money, you've got to keep our farms alive. And so I recognize that we need increased consumption.
When you talk about what a company like Horizon should do, does this reflect on Danone North America being a B Corp? In other words, you expect them to play by somewhat different rules from, Monsanto because they are a B Corp?
Yeah, and B Corp has reached out. I know this has been raised. B Corp has reached out to me. I've had conversations, and I think those are good questions. Yeah, I do. I think they're, I'm not here to criticize Horizon. I'm here to save these farms, okay? That may sound disingenuous, but I don't see, they've made their decision, whatever their reasons, and I have my own feelings about them. But what we really need to do now, we've really got less than a year for the Maple Hill farms, and we've got just over a year and so I think it's for the Horizon farms. So I think it's really critical that we focus on them. But since you're asking, I'll say, yeah, I think there's some important questions for B Corp to ask. I believe there were other options available to Horizon. I think they could have, the regional task force that was created at Tom Vilsack's request, came up with recommendations that were very relevant to Horizon. Most recently, Horizon announced their support of some of those recommendations, investments in local infrastructure. They could have done local processing. Here in the Northeast, we don't produce organic dried milk powder. That's an innovation. That could save a lot of these farms. They could embrace and invest in that. There could be, we don't do UHT milk, ultra high temperature. We don't do long shelf life. So there's a lot of innovation opportunities. There's no bulk yogurt, bag-in-the-box yogurt or fluid. Albert Strauss out in California has brilliantly converted the Novato school system by producing bag-in-the-box milk. What that means is when you sell milk in little cartons, there's a lot of wastage, right? Kids don't finish their carton, or a lot of them go out of code. With bag-in-the-box, it's only what goes into the glass is used. And so just avoidance of waste allowed them to offset the premium from organic to conventional.
So going organic was no more expensive.
Well, according to Albert, they paid for it with reduced waste.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's why Albert's on the advisory board for this new partnership, because I want to tap that knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think there were a lot of choices that could have been made. I think if you follow B Corp principles to a T, yes, there should be questions asked. I don't think this can be dismissed as just a supply problem. These are lives. These are people. And when you subscribe to B Corp, and I was a part of Danone when it became a B Corp, then you are saying that you are supporting a notion of all stakeholders deserving to be cared for. And in this case, obviously, 89 farms are not being cared for. Now, Danone is working to try to provide, help, but these farmers don't want business planning, right? They want contracts. So, if I may, then
Yes.
just to summarize, so the Northeast Organic Family. So I spent the fall gathering together all of the smart people in the region, from the state commissioners of agriculture, Vermont and Maine and Mass and others, to Congress people, in one case, governor, and then all the activist groups, NOFA, MOFCA, NADPA. I pulled in processors, I pulled in farmers, and I said, look, what about we try something that's never been tried before, which is a total ecosystem commitment to building demand, to building market. And my board, which reflects all the stakeholders, convened our first board meeting last week. And this Wednesday, which for purposes of this video is January 12th, we will announce an unprecedented collaborative, which I hope by the time this video runs, we will have been successful, but it's possible it will fail, but it's worth trying, in which we're inviting all stakeholders to make a meaningful, tangible contribution to saving these farms. Not just the 135 farms, but to create an environment that lifts all boats, that allows us to maybe convert more of these desperate conventional farmers who want to convert. And the way it works is really simple. We are inviting people to become partners. We've created a logo for the Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership. Maybe we'll show it on your website when this runs. And what we're saying to consumers starting this Wednesday is sign a pledge that you will commit in 2022 to purchase 1/4 of your family's dairy from the brands who are committed to supporting these farmers. So that, like I mentioned, there's 35 different brands. 1/4. It's not an arbitrary number. It turns out that if 25% of Northeast New York City to Bangor, Maine consumers, 25% increased by 25% their organic consumption, all of these farmers would be saved. But we're not hitting consumers with the numbers. There's too much. So that's consumers. Sign this pledge. We will not share your name with anybody, but we will build the numbers. Then we're signing on partners, partner brands, the 35 brands. What's a partner brand? A partner brand does at least two of the following three things. One, they are pledging with affidavits that at least 50% of the milk in the products that they sell in this market are from this area. And or, number two, they are owned by family farmers in this area, because this is about supporting the ecosystem. And or, number three, they are publicly demonstrating a commitment to increasing their purchases of milk from organic family farms in the Northeast. If you commit to two of those three things, you're a partner brand. We've got 35 of them. I hope that number will grow, because that's how we're going to grow. Third partner is what I call retail partners. Retail partners are everyone from co-ops and natural food stores, the Whole Foods and so forth, up to the Hannafords and the Big Ys. But it's also restaurants. It's also food service, cafeterias, and others. And what we're asking to be a retail partner is that you will commit, first of all, to support some of the partner brands, carry them if you're not already. And secondly, that you'll commit to increase the purchases of Northeast Organic Family Farm milk in 2022 versus what you purchased in 2021. The good news is, because we know all the 35 brands, we're going to know if they did it or not. It doesn't, we know that what they're buying, and we all know what we've all sold to them. So we are, by the time this runs, I hope we will have a long list, as it is right now, of partner retailers. We've talked to many. We have interest from the biggest of the big, Hannaford, to the tiniest, the little co-ops that I buy from, my Concord co-op. We have, but the idea, if you step back from it, is again, we're tying together the ecosystem. In addition, the Northeast Task Force that got their recommendations down to Secretary Vilsack and USDA, one of their major recommendations was to provide infrastructure money into the market for technology that we could do things like powdered milk and other things which should grow. And also for increased marketing and education monies to educate consumers about the ecosystem services of these, to make them more excited about supporting these farms. So in the end, this is not a heavy lift for anybody. We're saying to consumers, 1 in 4 of your items, just prioritize. We're saying to brands, if you want to commit to buying this milk, we're happy to promote you. And we're saying to retailers and food service, just commit to grow. The race is on, right? I mean, like I said, less than a year to save the Maple Hill, and a little over a year to save the Horizon Farms. But I can tell you this is doable. Just private label milk in the market, organic milk, just powdered milk, just increasing, getting cafeterias to add organic as options next to conventional, getting students excited about supporting local. So it gets us full circle, Dave, all the way back to the beginning of this discussion by saying that, we are rebuilding a food system here. That's what organic is about. And this is just taking a crisis and expediting that. And, we'll see if it works, but I'm hopeful.
Okay, it's a great idea. It obviously takes a lot of juice to put it together. I know you've worked on this very hard. Let me ask, I've thought about it since I discussed it with you, and there's one thing that bothers me, mm-hmm. and that is that how do you qualify to be named as one of those
partner brands?
Partner brands, and I think that there's a commitment to at least 50% of the milk in the carton is from the region, from a family farm in the region.
It's 2 of the 3 commitments. That's one of them. And then being owned by farmers, the organic farmers in the region, is a second. And then
that would be, for example, Organic Valley.
Yeah. And the third is publicly, in other words, putting your reputation on the line that you are committing to grow your purchases from these farms.
Yeah.
So in the case of, it's the 50% that's by.
It's because if we're building, it's sort of like saying, we have this new organic yogurt and it's 50% organic.
Yeah. No. Oh, no. It's not saying that. No, you can't.
Well, I understand it's not. That's my point. Yeah.
But I'll tell you the thinking on it. It's a little bit like, let's step away from this for just a second. And it's a little bit like the 1 in 4, 25% for the consumer. Like, why not 30%? Why not 1 in 3 or why not 1 in 2? I am emotionally committed to these 135 farms, and I want to reduce barriers as much as possible to increase consumption, because right now, the only thing that really matters is that they're saved. Those who want to stay in are saved. And as I say, it won't even be 135 because some have already dropped. But, this would be a tragedy, right?
Yeah.
So why 1 in 4? Because it's easier for consumers to do than 1 in 3. So to the partner brands point, why 50%? Well, simply put, when Organic Valley sources its fluid milk in this market, and their milk and their cream and their, I don't even know all their products, but that's probably 100% local. It's not probably, it is. But their cheese is not. Mm-hmm. And it was confused. I want to reduce the barrier. I mean, we need Organic Valley because we got to save these farms, right? But, if I say to the consumer, only buy Organic Valley milk but not cheese, that's too confusing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to allow that they would be considered a brand. And as it turns out, 50%, because 100% of their fluid, which is the big kahuna, is here, we're good. Similarly, let me just be very transparent with your audience. At Stonyfield, we buy organic dried milk powder for some of our products. I already said we don't produce organic dried milk powder in this region. I hope we will soon. There's an entrepreneur near you who's trying to raise money right now to do that. But we're not 100% from the region either, even though we're, mostly.
Your fluid milk is, but not your dried milk?
No, yeah. Oh, well, all the milk that goes into the yogurt, all the fluid milk, but I'm saying there's dried milk powder in some of those products. Because we don't use gelatins, right? We don't use stabilizers, that's what we use. And that, we don't produce organic dried milk powder here. So the goal was to set a meaningful barrier that would establish a real credible commitment to the farms, but not set up a hurdle that makes it impossible. Because honestly, with the time ticking, I'm not privy to this, so I'm not sharing confidential information here, but if I were to estimate, because I'm no longer a Stonyfield anything, I'm a very, 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 very part-time employee with a very modest little, but I'm not in management. But I would guess right now, based on what I know, and I'm spending a lot of time on this, that Organic Valley and Stonyfield will probably end up being able to pick up about 60% of the 135 farms. If I were to, make an educated guess, I just run the numbers. That's without this partnership. That's just through their own commitment to saving because they have the same commitment we do not to lose these farms. Like I said, organic dairy consumption is not growing fast, but it is growing. And if we need these farms 3 years from now and they're gone, we're screwed. But that still means 40% need a home. And for that reason, I need to, have credible minimum commitments, but not make them impossible for folks to do because the clock's ticking.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you think that Horizon is, how much of their milk, fluid milk, is from the region?
Well, as of next March, February, 0. That's what they're doing. They're not dropping some of the farms. They're dropping all the farms in the region. That's why I made the quip a few minutes ago that I think, organic consumers who, by definition, we're pretty committed to local, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to vote with our pocketbooks. Like I said, all the way back to Stonyfield's original, paradigm that, our dollars count. We vote when we shop. And, I think we need to say, look, fine, you're welcome to sell products in this market, but you got to circulate some of that money back here. You got to give too. And again, when you have the American Farmland Trust study that shows that 98% of organic farms supplies are derived locally, right? That means those monies are staying here. So when we're talking about losing $90 million or 87 million, I think consumers, this is all a lot for consumers to take. That's why I'm trying to keep this as simple as I can. But for people listening to this who are thinking about and working on these issues, I think we need to say that there are economic consequences to that organic is an economic proposition. It's changing the economic paradigm, as we've talked about, and there need to be economic consequences for not being a good corporate citizen.
We'd like to thank Gary Hirshberg for coming forward with his Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership in this time of crisis for so many family-scale dairies. We still have a lot of work to do to further change the consolidation in the industry so organic farmers that really graze can make a living. Don't forget, it's not too late to get a ticket to this year's symposium. You can watch last Sunday's replay and join us this coming Sunday for the final session, Protect Organic. If you sign up to become a sustaining donor under our Real Friends program, we'll send you a free ticket. We have an excellent year planned for our Real Friends to keep you educated and engaged for real changes in our food system. See you Sunday.